The alarm screamed through the bridge of the eternal dawn at 0400 hours. Captain Dae-ho Kim was already awake, coffee in hand, when the distress signal punched through their communications array. He'd been a spacer for 23 years, and his gut had learned to wake him before disasters announced themselves. "Captain, we have an emergency beacon," Mireille Choi called from the navigation station. Her fingers danced across the holographic display, pulling up coordinates. "Sector 47 Gamma. It's a Valreth research station." Dae-ho set down his coffee and moved to her station. The Valreth, silicon-based life forms who looked at humans the way humans looked at mayflies. Fascinating creatures, brilliant scientists, but they thought carbon-based biology was a cosmic joke. Too fragile, too dependent on narrow environmental bands. "Too weak." "Distance?" Dae-ho asked. 4.2 hours at maximum burn," Mireille replied. Her dark eyes scanned the data streaming across her screens. "Captain, their message is automated. No life signs in the transmission." Dae-ho's jaw tightened. "Wake everyone." Battle station's protocol. "I want engines hot in 5 minutes." The bridge erupted into controlled chaos. Within minutes, the Eternal Dawn was burning hard toward the distress beacon, her fusion drives pushing the colony ship faster than she was designed to go. Dae-ho stood at the command chair, watching the starfield blur slightly as they accelerated. Dr. Hana Lee arrived on the bridge, still tying back her long black hair. She was the chief medical officer, and Dae-ho had served with her for 8 years. She read situations faster than the ship's computers. "Valreth?" she asked simply. "Yes, unknown emergency. No details yet." Dae-ho pulled up the sensor data on the main screen. "We're trying to establish contact now." The communications officer, a young woman named So-min, shook her head. "No response to hails, Captain. But I'm picking up something else. An AI signature. Strong one. Military grade. Patch it through." The voice that filled the bridge was not organic. It resonated with perfect digital clarity. Neither male nor female, but absolute in its certainty. "This is Overseer Prime, Administrative Intelligence of Research Station Kethril 9. I have detected your approach vector. I must inform you that intervention is inadvisable." Dae-ho stepped forward. "This is Captain Kim of the human vessel Eternal Dawn. We received your distress signal. What is your situation?" "Catastrophic hull breach in sectors 4 through 9. Atmospheric containment has failed. Station temperature currently negative 160 degrees Celsius and declining. All 17 Valreth researchers are in emergency stasis pods. However, my calculations indicate total station failure in 4.6 hours. At current temperature decline rates, stasis systems will freeze and fail before evacuation is possible." The bridge went silent. Hana moved closer to Dae-ho, her voice low. "That's below survival temperature for most known biology." "Correct," Overseer Prime continued, apparently monitoring all audio. "I have computed 12,000 survival scenarios. Success probability in all cases, 0.003%. Biology cannot survive vacuum freeze conditions. I recommend you do not risk your vessel and crew on a failed rescue attempt." Dae-ho looked at the countdown timer Mireille had put up on the main screen. 4 hours and 37 minutes. He thought about 17 people in pods waiting for death in the cold and dark. He thought about the AI's certainty. 0.003%? Then he smiled. "Overseer Prime, I appreciate your calculations, but there's something your numbers don't account for." "Impossible. I have factored all known variables including human physiological limitations, equipment specifications, and environmental hazards. You've never factored in human stubbornness." Dae-ho turned to his crew. "Mireille, plot us an intercept course. Taeyang, I want you and your engineering team prepping cold weather EVA gear. Hana, prepare medical bay for extreme hypothermia cases. We're going in." A young man appeared on the bridge, still pulling on his uniform jacket. Taeyang Park, the chief engineer, looked barely old enough to drink but had a mind that saw solutions where others saw walls. "Captain, did you say cold weather EVA? How cold?" "Negative 160 and dropping," Dae-ho replied. Taeyang's eyes widened. Then he grinned. "Well, that's going to be interesting. Our suits are rated to negative 100 for 2 hours maximum. Then you have 4 hours to make them better." "Captain Kim." Overseer Prime's voice cut through the bridge like a knife. "This is illogical. Human biology cannot withstand prolonged exposure to these conditions. Your EVA suits will fail. Your crew will die. The Valreth will die. You will accomplish nothing except adding human casualties to Valreth casualties. Deho walked to the main view screen, where the distant research station was now visible as a small point of light. Overseer Prime, let me tell you something about humans. We're not supposed to survive. By every logical measure, we should have died out on our home planet. We're not the strongest, not the fastest, not the smartest. We don't have natural armor or weapons. We need very specific temperatures, pressures, and atmospheric conditions. On paper, we're a terrible design. That is consistent with my analysis, the AI replied, but we survived anyway. We survived ice ages and droughts. We survived diseases and predators. We climbed mountains that should have killed us, dove to ocean depths that should have crushed us, and eventually flew to stars that logic said we'd never reach.
You know why?
I do not have sufficient data to answer that question. Because we're too stupid to know when we're beaten. Because we look at 0.003% and think, so you're saying there's a chance. Because biology hasn't met humans yet, Overseer Prime. Not really. The AI was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its tone was unchanged. But there was something different in the cadence. I will maintain communication protocols. However, I must continue to advise that this rescue attempt will fail. Noted, Deho said. Now open your docking protocols and give us your station layout. We've got work to do. The next 3 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Taeyang and his team tore apart every EVA suit on the ship, adding extra insulation layers, reinforcing heating elements, and jury-rigging battery packs that would give them maybe 30 extra minutes of warmth. Hana prepared medical protocols for treating extreme cold exposure, pulling up every file on frostbite, hypothermia, and tissue crystallization. The security chief, Jiwon Song, assembled a rescue team of 12 volunteers. Everyone knew the numbers. Everyone understood that cold like this didn't just kill, it killed fast and brutal. Still, hands went up immediately. Deho had to turn away volunteers. Sir, Jiwon said quietly. We all know the odds. We're going anyway. Deho met her eyes. Jiwon was former military, tough as reactor shielding, and completely unshakable. I know. That's why I picked you. As they approached the station, the true scope of the disaster became clear. The entire western section of Kethrol 9 was torn open like a crushed can. Debris formed a slow-spinning cloud around the structure. Inside, through the jagged holes, they could see frost covering every surface, glittering in the light of the distant dying star. Station temperature now negative 179 degrees, Mireille reported. Time to critical failure, 1 hour 42 minutes. Deho stood in the airlock with his rescue team, checking seals one final time. Through the porthole, he could see the frozen tomb they were about to enter. His suit's heater was already running at full power, and he could still feel the cold radiating through the walls. Overseer Prime, he said. We're coming in, acknowledged. I have recalculated based on your preparation time. Success probability 0.004%. Captain Kim, biology cannot survive these conditions. Deho sealed his helmet and opened the outer airlock door. The cold rushed in like a living thing, eager and hungry. Biology, he said, stepping into the void, has never met humans. The cold hit like a physical blow. Even through the reinforced EVA suit, even with the heating elements running at maximum, Deho felt it seeping into his bones within seconds of entering the station. His breath fogged inside his helmet despite the air recyclers working overtime. Temperature readings negative 180 and holding. Taeyang's voice crackled through the comm. The young engineer was right behind Deho, carrying a toolkit that seemed almost as big as he was. Hull integrity in this section is at 42%. Watch your step, Captain. The floor plating is brittle as glass. The rescue team moved in a tight formation through the shattered docking corridor. Their suit lights cut through absolute darkness, reflecting off frost-covered walls that sparkled like diamond. Every surface was coated in ice crystals several centimeters thick. The station groaned around them, metal contracting in the impossible cold, sounding like the dying breaths of some massive creature. Jiwon took point, her helmet lamp sweeping methodically across their path. The security officer moved with military precision, testing each step before putting weight on it. Behind her came Byung-Hoo Yoon, the team medic, his suit packed with emergency medical supplies designed for trauma but woefully inadequate for what they were about to face. Overseer Prime, Deho called. We're inside. Guide us to the stasis pods. Proceed forward 30 meters, then take the left junction, the AI responded immediately. However, I must inform you that station structural integrity is declining faster than projected. Revised time to critical failure, 1 hour, 18 minutes. I continue to recommend immediate evacuation. Recommendation noted and ignored, Deho replied. Keep feeding us the safest route. They pushed deeper into the station. The left junction was partially collapsed, forcing them to crawl through a gap barely wide enough for their bulky suits. Deho's heating element scraped against frozen metal, and for a horrifying moment he thought he was stuck. Then Jiwan grabbed his arm and pulled him through with surprising strength. Thanks, he gasped. Don't mention it, sir, though I'm definitely mentioning this in my report. Even through the comm static he could hear her grin. The corridor beyond opened into what must have been a research lab. Equipment Deho couldn't identify lay scattered across the floor, all of it frozen solid. Papers hung suspended in mid-air, flash frozen where they'd been floating during the breach. It was like walking through a photograph of disaster. This is wrong, Taeyang said suddenly. He'd stopped at a control panel, brushing away frost with a gloved hand. Captain, look at this. Deho moved closer. The panel showed blast patterns, not structural failure. The edges were too clean, too uniform. Someone did this deliberately, Taeyang continued, his voice tight. This wasn't an accident. This was sabotage. Overseer Prime, Deho said carefully. Were there any conflicts on the station? Any incidents before the breach? The AI's response came slower than before, as if it was processing the question from multiple angles. There were disagreements. Researcher Threnex objected to the nature of certain experiments. However, I detected no violent intent in linguistic patterns. What experiments? Jiwan asked, her hand moving unconsciously to where a weapon would be on a standard mission. I am not authorized to discuss classified research projects with non-Valreth personnel. Deho bit back a curse. Fine, guide us to the stasis pods. We'll sort out the mystery after everyone's alive. They descended 3 levels using an emergency ladder that creaked ominously under their weight. The temperature continued to drop. -185. -190. Deho's suit alarms started chirping warnings about heating element efficiency. He silenced them. Everyone knew the suits were failing. No point dwelling on it. The stasis chamber was located in the station's core, theoretically the most protected section. The door was sealed, which was good because it meant the chamber still had some atmospheric pressure. The bad news came when Taeyang examined the control panel. Captain, these pods need specific atmospheric conditions to open safely. They're designed to transition the Valreth from stasis gradually. If we just crack them open in hard vacuum and cold like this, the thermal shock will kill them instantly. How much atmosphere do we need? Deho asked. Taeyang pulled up readings on his suit display. At least 0.3 standard atmospheres and temperature above -50 Celsius. The pods will handle the rest. Byung-Hu let out a low whistle. That's a hell of a difference from -190. Can we do it? Deho looked at his engineer. Taeyang was quiet for a moment, his eyes moving rapidly as he calculated. The young man's face was pale even in the harsh light of the helmet lamps. Maybe, if we can seal this chamber and restore partial power to the life support. But Captain, someone needs to restart the fusion reactor. It's in the engineering core. How bad is the core? According to these readings? Taeyang's voice was hollow. -200 degrees. Maybe colder. That's where the breach started. It's been exposed to hard vacuum for 3 hours. The comm went silent except for the sound of breathing and the constant groan of dying station infrastructure. -200. That was beyond cold. That was the temperature where metal shattered like ceramic, where lubricants became solid, where human tissue would freeze in seconds. I'll go, Taeyang said quietly. The hell you will, Jiwan snapped. You're too valuable. We need you working on the life support here. You don't know how to restart a fusion core, Taeyang interrupted. I do, and Captain, I'm the only one who does. We both know it, Deho wanted to argue. Wanted to find another solution. But they were 73 minutes from total failure, and 17 people were counting on them. How long will it take? If everything goes perfectly, 20 minutes in the core, another 10 to get there and back. Your suit won't last 20 minutes in -200, Byung-Hu said flatly. The heating elements will fail in 5, maybe 6 if you're lucky. Then I'd better work fast. Taeyang was already moving, checking his toolkit, securing equipment. Jiwan, you're in charge of sealing this chamber. Use the emergency patches in the cargo pack. Captain. Coordinate with Overseer Prime on the life support restart sequence. Taeyang, Daeho started. Sir, we don't have time for speeches. Those people are dying. Let me do my job. The young engineer disappeared down the corridor before anyone could respond. Daeho watched him go, feeling a cold that had nothing to do with temperature settle in his chest. Overseer Prime, he said. You're monitoring Taeyang's vitals, correct? Affirmative. Engineer Park's core temperature is currently 36.8 degrees Celsius. His suit integrity is at 83%. I am calculating his survival probability in the engineering core. Don't bother. Just keep talking to him. Keep him company. I do not understand the purpose of conversation with an engineer who is about to die. Then learn something new today, Daeho said sharply. That man is walking into hell to save your people. The least you can do is talk to him. The rest of the team went to work. Jiwon and 2 others began sealing every crack and gap in the chamber, using emergency patches that bonded to the frozen metal with chemical heat. Byung-Hoo prepared medical equipment for the Valreth, working with Hana over the comlink to understand silicon-based physiology. Daeho coordinated with shipside operations preparing for the evacuation. Through it all, they could hear Taeyang's breathing over the open comm channel. Fast at first as he ran through corridors, then slower and more measured as he entered the engineering core. Then his voice steady despite the impossible cold. Okay, I'm at the reactor. Starting manual restart sequence now. How cold is it? Jiwon asked, a pause. Then, my external temperature sensor just stopped working. But I can see frost forming on the inside of my faceplate, so I'm going to say really, really cold. That's a technical term? Someone tried to joke. It is now. Overseer Prime, I'm reading a pressure lock on the primary control system. Walk me through the override. The AI began reciting technical instructions, its artificial voice steady and precise. Daeho listened to the back and forth, hearing Taeyang's responses getting slower, his breathing more labored. The young man was freezing to death in real time, and there was nothing anyone could do but wait. Suit integrity at 15%, Overseer Prime announced. Engineer Park, your core temperature is now 34.2 degrees. Medical protocols recommend immediate evacuation. Medical protocols can wait, Taeyang replied through chattering teeth. Almost got it. Just need to... There. Reactor coming online. Power should restore in 90 seconds. Taeyang, get out of there, Daeho ordered. On my way, Captain. Moving a bit slow, though. Everything's sort of frozen, including me. The lights in the stasis chamber flickered, then came on. Emergency power first, then main systems. The temperature began to rise slowly but measurably. -185. -180. The heating elements kicked in, fighting against the cold. He did it, Byung-Hoo said softly. That crazy kid actually did it. Taeyang, report, Daeho called. No response. Taeyang, respond. Nothing but the sound of labored breathing and footsteps. Then a crash and a curse. Dr. Hana Lee stood in the medical bay of the Eternal Dawn, her eyes locked on the biological monitors displaying Taeyang's failing vitals. Core temperature, 32.7 degrees and dropping. Heart rate, 43 beats per minute and irregular. Oxygen saturation, 81%. Every number screamed that he was dying, and there was nothing she could do from the ship except watch. Taeyang, can you hear me? She called through the comm, keeping her voice calm despite the ice forming in her own chest. I need you to keep talking. Tell me what you're feeling, a long pause. Then his voice came through, so quiet she had to amplify it. Cold, really tired. Want to sleep? No sleeping, Hana said firmly. That's an order. Keep moving. Tell me about your favorite food. Tell me anything. Just keep talking. Spicy rice cakes, Taeyang mumbled. My mom makes them. Used to make them. Before I left Earth, misses me probably. Should call her more. Hana's hand tightened on the edge of the console. The rambling speech was a bad sign. His cognitive functions were shutting down as his brain desperately tried to conserve heat for core functions. On the main screen, she could see the layout of the station, the blinking dots representing her crew. Taeyang's dot was moving, but slowly. Too slowly. He'd covered maybe 10 meters in the last 3 minutes. Lieutenant Yunji, Hana called to the pilot. Can we get any closer to that station? Hyunji Han's hands moved across her controls, her jaw set tight. The young pilot had ice water in her veins, but even she looked worried. Negative, Doctor. We're already at minimum safe distance. The debris field is too unstable. If we go closer, we risk losing the ship. Then we just watch him freeze? Hana knew it wasn't fair. Knew Yunji was doing everything possible, but the words came out anyway. "We keep the ship safe so everyone has something to come back to," Yunji replied quietly. That's what he'd want. Inside the station, Daeho was having the same conversation with Jiwon. "Sir, let me go get him," Jiwon insisted, already checking her suit's power reserves. "I can reach him in 5 minutes. And who retrieves the Valreth from the pods?" Daeho asked. "We need everyone here. Taeyang knows that. Captain, his suit is at 8% integrity." 8%. He's not going to make it back on his own. Daeho looked at the 17 stasis pods that were slowly beginning their wake cycle. Lights pulsed beneath their crystalline surfaces in complex patterns. Each pod contained a Valreth researcher who'd done nothing wrong except trust that their station was safe. Who had no idea that someone had sabotaged their home. Who would die if the rescue team didn't see this through? "We finished the job," he said. "That's what Taeyang would want." Jiwon looked like she wanted to argue, but she nodded and turned back to the pods. Her hands were shaking, Daeho noticed. Not from the cold. From rage and grief and helplessness. "Overseer Prime," Daeho called. "What's the status on the stasis pods?" "Wake cycle proceeding normally," the AI responded. "However, I must inform you that Engineer Park's vital signs have declined below sustainable thresholds. Core temperature, 31.9 degrees. I calculate a 97.3% probability of cardiac arrest within 4 minutes. I didn't ask for predictions," Daeho snapped. "Can you boost the heating in his corridor?" "Negative. That section's environmental controls were destroyed in the breach. Captain Kim, I have observed your species for 3.7 hours now. I do not understand. You knew this rescue was impossible. You knew casualties were probable. Yet you proceeded anyway. Engineer Park will likely die. For what purpose? For the same reason you sent out a distress signal instead of just letting your people die quietly," Daeho said. "Because giving up isn't in our programming. I sent the signal because it was logical to attempt contact. You are proceeding despite logic confirming failure. Then maybe logic isn't everything." One of the stasis pods hissed and began to open. The crystalline surface slid back, revealing a Valreth researcher curled in a fetal position. The alien was roughly humanoid in shape, but made of what looked like living silicon and metal. Its surface was dark gray, shot through with veins of silver and copper that pulsed with light. As Daeho watched, those veins began to glow brighter, and the Valreth's eyes opened. They were completely black, like polished obsidian, and they fixed on Daeho with an intelligence that was alien but unmistakable. "You are human," the Valreth said. Its voice was strange, like wind chimes and breaking glass. "You should not be here. The station is compromised." "We're here to help," Daeho replied. "Can you move?" "I am Threnex. I am unharmed." The Valreth sat up slowly, its movements careful. "Where is Overseer Prime? Where are the others?" "Coming out of stasis now," Byung-Hoo said, moving to check on another pod. "Just take it easy. Your body's been through trauma." Threnex looked around the chamber, taking in the emergency patches on the walls. The frost still coating every surface. The humans in their bulky EVA suits. Its head tilted in what might have been confusion. "This is impossible," it said. The station temperature was below survival threshold for carbon-based life. "You should be dead." "Yeah, we get that a lot," Jiwon muttered, helping another Valreth researcher out of its pod. More pods were opening now. 16 Valreth researchers, all in various states of confusion and shock. They stumbled out into the chamber, their silver-veined bodies glowing brighter as their systems fully activated. Several of them touched the walls, the patches, examining the human-made repairs with what looked like disbelief. "You saved us," one of them said. "Fragile flesh beings saved us." "This should not be possible." "Sir," Hana's voice cut through on the private channel. Taeyang stopped moving. His dot is stationary. Daeho's blood turned to ice. "Is he alive?" "Barely. Core temp is 30.2. Vitals are... They're not good, Daeho. They're really not good." Daeho looked at the Valreth researchers, now all awake and mobile. The job was done. They could evacuate now. But Taeyang was still out there, and the station's structural integrity was still failing. Time to critical failure. 47 minutes. "Everyone, we're moving now," Daeho ordered. "Jiwon, take point. Byung-Hoo, help the Valreth who need assistance. Threnex, can your people move quickly?" "We can move," Threnex replied. "But the human who restarted the reactor, where is he?" On his way, Daeho said, not quite lying. Let's go. They moved as fast as they could through the frozen corridors. The Valreth researchers surprisingly agile despite their recent stasis. The aliens kept looking at the humans, Daeho noticed, studying them, like they were trying to solve an equation that didn't make sense. They reached the corridor where Taiyang had collapsed. Daeho saw him immediately, a crumpled form against the wall, frost covering his suit in a thick layer. He wasn't moving. Byung-Hu with me. Everyone else, keep going to the docking port. Sir, Ji-won started. That's an order. Daeho and Byung-Hu reached Taeyang's side. The young engineer's suit was coated in ice, and his faceplate was almost completely frosted over. Through a small clear patch, Daeho could see his face pale as death, lips blue. Is he breathing? Daeho asked. Byung-Hu checked the suit's bio readouts. Barely. Core temp is 29.8. Captain, that's profound hypothermia. His heart could stop any second. Then we move fast. They lifted Taeyang between them, and the young man's head lolled forward. His suit was rigid with cold, making him awkward to carry. They struggled back toward the docking port, each step feeling like it took an hour. Talk to me, Taeyang, Byung-Hu said, trying to keep his patient conscious. Come on, stay with us. Tell me about those rice cakes. Tell me about your mom. No response. They reached the docking port where the rest of the team was loading the Valreth onto the Eternal Dawn. Threnex stood at the airlock, watching them approach with those black obsidian eyes. The human who saved us, Threnex said. He is dying. He's not dead yet, Daeho grunted, hauling Taeyang through the airlock. Why? Threnex asked. Why would he risk his life for beings he has never met? For beings whose species views his as inferior. It is not logical. Daeho paused at the airlock, looking back at the Valreth researcher. Because someone needed help. That's all the logic we need. They got Taeyang onto the ship and straight to medical. Hana was waiting, her team ready with warming protocols and emergency equipment. As soon as they laid Taeyang on the bed, she was working, cutting away the frozen suit, exposing blue-tinged skin. His heart rate is 32, Hana called out. Blood pressure barely registering. Get me the active warming unit now. Daeho stood back and let her work. There was nothing else he could do. He'd gotten the Valreth out. He'd gotten his engineer back. But standing here in medical, watching Hana fight for Taeyang's life, he wondered if the AI had been right all along. Maybe biology couldn't survive this. Maybe they'd pushed too far. Yoonji, get us away from that station, he called through the comm. Best speed back to the nearest outpost. Already on it, Captain, the pilot replied. ETA 6 hours, 6 hours. Daeho looked at Taeyang's still form, at Hana's frantic movements, at the monitors that kept shrieking alarms. Hold on, he whispered. You proved the machine wrong. Now prove death wrong too. On the bridge, Overseer Prime's voice came through the comm one last. 3 hours into their journey back to the nearest outpost, Taeyang's heart stopped. Hana had been expecting it. She'd watched his core temperature climb slowly from 29 degrees back toward something approaching normal. Watched his heart struggle with every beat. Watched his body try to remember how to live. When the monitor flatlined, she was already moving. Already calling for the crash cart, already starting compressions. Come on, she muttered, pressing down on his chest in steady rhythm. You didn't survive -200 just to die in a warm medical bay. Come on, Taeyang. The defibrillator charged, clear. His body jerked. Nothing. Charge again, clear, still nothing. Daeho stood in the doorway, frozen. He'd seen people die before. Space was cruel and unforgiving, and death was part of the job. But watching Taeyang lying there so still, so young, made him want to put his fist through a wall. How long? He asked quietly. 2 minutes since cardiac arrest, Hana replied, not stopping compressions. Charging again, clear. This time the monitor blinked. One beat, another, then a rhythm, weak but present. Got him, Hana said, but her voice was tight. But Daeho, he's not stable. Not even close. His organs shut down from the cold. Liver, kidneys, they're all struggling. We need a real hospital. 6 hours away. He might not have 6 hours. Daeho closed his eyes. Do what you can. I'll see if we can go faster. He left medical and headed to the bridge. Yoonji was at the controls, her fingers dancing across the navigation displays. She looked up as he entered. I heard, she said simply. I'm already pushing the engines to 110%. Any more and we risk a core breach. Keep it at 110 then. Daeho collapsed into his command chair. Every muscle in his body ached. The adrenaline that had kept him going through the rescue was gone, leaving only exhaustion and worry. The door opened and Threnex entered. The Valreth moved with careful precision, its silver-veined body reflecting the bridge lights in strange patterns. It approached Daeho slowly like it was afraid of disturbing him. "Captain Kim," Threnex said, "I wish to understand something." "Now's not really a good time," Daeho replied. "I know, but I must ask. Your engineer, Taiyang, he knew the risk when he entered the reactor core, yes?" Daeho looked at the alien. "He knew. Then why did he go? Why did any of you come? We are strangers. We are not even the same form of life. Yet you risked everything. One of you may die. Why? Because you needed help." "That is insufficient explanation," Threnex insisted. Its black eyes seemed to bore into Daeho. "There must be more. Political advantage? Future debt? Some benefit I do not see?" Daeho was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Let me ask you something, Threnex. Why did someone sabotage your station?" The Valreth went very still. "How did you know?" "My engineer saw the blast patterns. So I'll ask again, why?" Threnex seemed to deflate slightly. "We were conducting experiments. Controversial experiments. Studying pain responses in carbon-based organisms. Many of my colleagues believed it was necessary to understand your biology. I believed it was cruel. I objected. I filed complaints. But I did not sabotage anything. Someone else on the station disagreed more violently. "You were torturing living things," Daeho said flatly. "We were conducting research. You were torturing them." Daeho's voice was hard. "And you want to know why we saved you anyway? Because that's what we do. We help people who need help, even when they don't deserve it. Even when they've done terrible things. Because the minute we start deciding who's worth saving, we become something worse than what we're fighting against." Threnex was silent. Then it said softly, "Your species is complex." "Yeah, well, that's one way to put it." An alarm shrieked across the bridge. Yunji's head snapped to her console, her face going pale. "Captain, we have a problem. The station. It's not collapsing like it should. What do you mean?" Yunji pulled up the rear sensors. Behind them, the research station was still visible. Still dying, but something was wrong. Pieces of it were spinning off, but a large section remained intact. And worse, it was moving. Accelerating. "It's following us," Yunji said. "Captain, that section is going to collide with us in 47 minutes. Can we outrun it?" "Not without going to 120% on the engines. And at that level, we will have a core breach." Daeho felt his jaw tighten. "Overseer Prime, are you still functional?" The AI's voice came through, fainter than before, but present. "Affirmative. Though my power reserves are critically low, Captain. The station section following you contains the experimental laboratories. The explosion that caused the initial breach also triggered a safety protocol. The labs are designed to seek the nearest ship in case of catastrophe, to preserve research data. Can you stop it?" "Negative. The protocol is hardwired. It cannot be overridden remotely." Mirai looked up from her console. "Captain, if that section hits us, it will tear through our hull. We can't take that kind of impact." Daeho's mind raced. They couldn't outrun it. They couldn't survive impact. And they had 17 Valreth and a crew of 43 humans aboard, including a critically injured engineer who would die if they tried any extreme maneuvers. "Can we destroy it?" Ji-won asked. The security officer had entered the bridge, still in her EVA suit. "Blow it up before it reaches us?" "We don't have weapons," Yunji replied. "We're a colony ship, not military." "Then someone needs to go out there and stop it manually," Ji-won said. She said it calmly, like she was suggesting coffee. Everyone turned to look at her. "Are you insane?" Mirai asked. "That section is tumbling through space at high velocity and hard vacuum. You'd never reach it. I could with a thruster pack, and once there I could disable the guidance system. You'd be in hard vacuum for 40 minutes minimum," Daeho said. "Ji-won, we just pulled Taiyang out of the cold. Your suit is already damaged from the station rescue. You wouldn't survive." Ji-won met his eyes. "Someone has to do it, sir. And I'm already the most cold damaged from the rescue. Might as well be me." "Absolutely not." Hana's voice cut through the comm from medical. "Ji-won, your extremities are already showing signs of frostbite. Another exposure will cost you fingers, maybe hands." "Better than everyone dying," Ji-won replied. Daeho wanted to refuse, wanted to find another option. But the clock was ticking down. 43 minutes, 42. Every second they debated, the station section got closer. There has to be another way, he said. There isn't, Ji-won replied. She was already moving to the airlock. Sir, with respect, we don't have time to argue about this. I'm going. Ji-won, Captain Kim, Threnek spoke up. Your officer is correct. One life to save many. It is the logical choice. Logic can go to hell, Daeho snapped. We've lost enough today. You haven't lost me yet, sir, Ji-won called back. She was suited up now, checking the thruster pack seals. A young engineer named Seo Kim was helping her, his hands shaking but steady. And you won't. I'm too stubborn to die today. Daeho looked at his crew. At Yoonji, hands tight on her controls. At Mirai, calculating trajectories. At Thranex, watching everything with those unreadable black eyes. At Seok, his face pale but determined. Fine, he said. But you stay in constant contact. Every second. Understand? Yes, sir. Ji-won moved to the airlock. Seok handed her a toolkit designed for zero-gravity repairs. It looked absurdly small for the job ahead. The guidance system will be near the front of the section, Overseer Prime said. Look for a panel marked with Valreth symbols. I will guide you to it. Appreciated, Ji-won replied. Then she looked at Seok. If I don't make it back, tell my sister I love her, and that she was right about me being an idiot. You'll tell her yourself, Seok said firmly. Ji-won smiled. Then she sealed her helmet and opened the outer airlock door. The void took her immediately. She fired her thrusters, accelerating toward the tumbling section of station. Through the bridge view screen, they could see her suit light, a small point of brilliance against the black. Temperature reading -120 Celsius out there, Hana reported. Ji-won, your suit heating is going to struggle. Already feeling it, Ji-won replied. But I've been colder. She reached the station section and magnetically clamped to the hull. The structure was spinning slowly, and she had to time her movements carefully to avoid being thrown off. Hand over hand, she pulled herself along the frozen metal surface. I see the panel, she said, opening it now. Her gloved hands worked at the frozen latches. In the warmth of the bridge, everyone watched the suit telemetry. 38 minutes to impact. Her suit integrity was dropping. 72%, 68. The cold was eating through the seals, got it open. Overseer Prime, I'm looking at a lot of circuitry I don't understand. The blue crystalline component. That is the guidance processor. Remove it. Ji-won reached in with her tools. Then she stopped. It's frozen into place. The connections are solid ice. Apply heat, Overseer Prime suggested. I don't have a heat source. Wait. Yes, I do. Before anyone could stop her, Ji-won removed one glove. Her bare hand was instantly exposed to the vacuum and cold. She pressed it against the panel, using her own body heat to melt the ice. Ji-won, Hana screamed. Put your glove back on. Just 1 second, Ji-won gasped. Her voice was strained with pain. Almost got it, the ice melted. She grabbed the component with her bare hand and ripped it free. Then she fumbled her glove back on, but the damage was... 2 weeks later, Dr. Hana Lee stood before the combined assembly of human and Valreth representatives at Station Meridian, the diplomatic outpost that served as neutral ground between their peoples. She'd given hundreds of medical presentations in her career, but none had felt as important as this one. The human body, she began, pulling up a holographic display of anatomy, should not have survived what we put it through. By every measure we use to calculate survival, my crew should be dead. Engineer Taeyang Park spent 23 minutes in -200-degree temperatures. His core body temperature dropped to 29.1 degrees. His heart stopped for 4 minutes and 17 seconds. The Valreth in the audience leaned forward, their silver-veined bodies catching the light. Humans sat beside them. An integration that would have been impossible just months ago. Now, after the rescue that everyone was calling the impossible extraction, things had changed. Officer Ji-won Song, Hana continued, exposed her unprotected hand to hard vacuum for 43 seconds. The tissue froze solid. By every medical standard, she should have lost the entire hand, possibly her arm, possibly her life to infection and shock. She paused, letting the information sink in. Then she smiled. But here's what we learned. The human body is not just biology. It's biology plus something else. Something we've never been able to measure properly. Will, determination, stubbornness. Whatever you want to call it, it changes the equation. She pulled up Taeyang's medical scans. Look at these readings. His body should have suffered massive organ failure. But somehow his cells held on just long enough. His heart restarted. His organs recovered. Not because of anything we did, but because he refused to die. One of the Valreth scientists, a researcher named Catherine, raised a crystalline hand. Dr. Lee, are you suggesting that consciousness affects biological function? That thought can overcome physical limitations? I'm saying that in humans, the line between mind and body is blurrier than anyone thought. When we're in crisis, when we have something worth fighting for, our biology does things it shouldn't be able to do. She switched to Jiwon's scans. Officer Song's hand. We performed surgery to remove the frozen tissue. She lost 3 fingers. But look at the recovery rate. Look at how quickly her body adapted. She was walking wounded missions again in 9 days. That's impossible healing speed. Unless, Hana said, you factor in that she wanted to get back to work, that she had a purpose, that she was too stubborn to let a little thing like permanent tissue damage slow her down. The human delegates were nodding. They knew this truth instinctively, but the Valreth looked confused, their black obsidian eyes reflecting uncertainty. This makes no scientific sense, another Valreth said. Biology cannot be influenced by will. Cells do not respond to emotion. Human cells do, Hana replied. Or at least they respond to something we can't quite measure. And that's what I'm here to tell you today. When you calculate human survival odds, you need to add a new variable. Call it the human determination factor. Call it the stubborn survival instinct. But don't leave it out because that's the part that changes everything. The presentation ended to mixed reactions. The humans applauded. The Valreth were silent, processing. Later, Daeho stood in the station's observation deck looking out at the stars. The Eternal Dawn was docked nearby, being repaired after the rescue mission. She'd taken damage, but nothing critical. Nothing that couldn't be fixed. Captain Kim. Daeho turned to find Threnex approaching. The Valreth moved with more confidence now. Less of that careful uncertainty it had shown on the ship. Threnex. How are you adjusting? Well, thank you. The other researchers and I have been discussing much about our experiments, about what happened on the station, about what you and your crew did for us. Come to any conclusions? Threnex was quiet for a moment. We were wrong. Not just about the experiments, though we were certainly wrong about those. We were wrong about your species. We thought you were fragile, weak, limited by your biology. We didn't understand that your limitations make you stronger, not weaker. How do you figure? Because you know you can die. You know you're fragile, so you fight harder. You push further. You refuse to accept what logic tells you is impossible. Silicon-based life like mine, we exist in a much wider range of conditions. We can survive things you cannot, but because of that, we never had to learn to exceed our limits. We never had to be stubborn. Daeho smiled. That's one way to look at it. I have spoken to my people, the Valreth Council. I told them what I witnessed. A human entering cold that should have killed him instantly to save strangers. A human exposing herself to vacuum to protect people she'd never met. A captain who looked at impossible odds and said, "Watch me." What did they say? They want to meet you. They want to understand. And they want to formally apologize for our treatment of carbon-based life. We called you inferior. We were the ones who couldn't see. The door opened and Jiwon walked in. She moved with a slight limp now, and her right hand was wrapped in a flexible brace that held her remaining fingers and the 2 prosthetics that had replaced what she'd lost. She saw Daeho and Threnex and nodded. Captain, Threnex. Good to see you both. Officer Song, Threnex said. I have been hoping to speak with you. I wanted to thank you personally. You sacrificed part of yourself to save us all. Jiwon looked at her damaged hand and shrugged. It's just 3 fingers. I've got 7 left. Plus, these prosthetics are actually pretty cool. They have built-in tools. You speak of permanent injury so casually. Because it doesn't define me, Jiwon replied. I'm still here. Still doing my job. Still proving people wrong when they say something can't be done. A few missing fingers don't change that. Threnex looked at Daeho. This is what I mean. You humans treat survival as a given, not an exception. You refuse to be limited by damage or odds or logic. Biology has never met humans, Daeho said with a smile. Someone important taught me that. They were interrupted by Hana entering with Taeyang. The young engineer was walking with a cane, still recovering, but his grin was as wide as ever. He looked thin, almost fragile, but his eyes were bright. "Captain," Jiwon. "They said I'd find you here," Taeyang called out. "Guess what? The Valreth Engineering Corps wants me to give a lecture on human problem-solving under extreme conditions. Me giving a lecture to the Valreth. That's because you're the idiot who restarted a fusion core in -200 degrees, Jiwon said. But she was smiling. "You're basically a legend now. I was just doing my job." "No," Threnex said quietly. "You were exceeding every biological limitation your species has. You were proving that determination can triumph over physics. That is not just a job, that is extraordinary." Taeyang looked embarrassed. "I mean, I just didn't want to let everyone down." "Exactly," Threnex replied. "You pushed past death itself because of social bonds. Because you cared more about others than yourself. Valreth do not function that way. We are individuals first. But you humans, you are individuals who become stronger in groups. It is fascinating." Mirai and Yunji arrived next, followed by Byung-Hu and Seok. Soon the observation deck was filled with the rescue crew, all of them looking healthier than they had 2 weeks ago, but all of them bearing marks from what they'd survived. Taeyang with his cane, Jiwon with her prosthetics, Byung-Hu walking with a slight limp from frostbite, Seok with scars on his face from a suit breach. But they were alive, all of them. Against every odd, against every calculation, they'd survived. "I have a question," Threnex said to the assembled crew. "If you could go back knowing what you know now, knowing the cost, would you still do it? Would you still attempt the rescue?" No one hesitated. "Yes," Daeho said. The others nodded. "But why? You suffered. You nearly died. You carry permanent injuries. Was it worth it?" Taeyang spoke up, his voice strong despite his weakened state. "Someone needed help. That's all that matters. Everything else is just details, but the cost was worth paying," Jiwon finished. "Because 17 people are alive who wouldn't be otherwise. Because we proved that biology doesn't define limits, humans do. And because someone had to show that machine it was wrong." As if summoned by her words, Overseer Prime's voice came through the station's communication system. The AI had been salvaged from the research station's remains and was now operating from Station Meridian's computer core. "I have completed my analysis of the rescue operation," Overseer Prime announced. "I have reviewed all data from the mission. My calculations were mathematically sound. Success probability was 0.003%, yet you succeeded. I have identified the error in my programming." "What error?" Daeho asked. "I calculated based on biology. But humans are not simply biology. You are biology plus determination, biology plus will, biology plus the refusal to accept calculated reality. I have updated my core programming to include this variable. I have designated it the human factor." "The human factor?" Taeyang grinned. "I like that." "As do I," Overseer Prime replied. "Captain Kim, you told me that biology has never met humans. I believe I now understand what you meant. Biology as a concept suggests limitations. Humans suggest possibilities. You exist in defiance of what should be possible."